Well, we're in for a treat. Being a huge fan of the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games, I have never really dived into the world of PMD Romhacks. Since I'm a huge fan of the Explorers games, I've browsed Sky Temple a number of times in the past, but never really made time to sit down and play one. Until now, that is. I figured this would be a neat video idea. I decided to go with Explorers of the Spirit to start things off. This golden bird next to the Romhack link seemed to promise only great things. Explorers of the Spirit is a story hack from Explorers of Sky, promising a new full-length story about our familiar comforts and uncomfortable changes. And honestly, this Romhack did deliver just that. So, hello. Welcome back to the channel if you've been here before, and hope you enjoy the rest of the video. If at any point during the video you'd like to play this Romhack for yourself, then do yourself a favor and stop the video right then and there and play this game. The game started off with a compulsory personality quiz where our aura was analyzed. The quiz resulted in a green aura, and we proceeded to pick a Pikachu as per channel tradition. I've never picked a Torchic as a partner before, so here's to my first time partnering with this chicken. The first minutes of the story started identical to the original game, which got me quite confused at first. I thought I hadn't patched the game properly. As we watched the first beach scene unfold, our main character started speaking, so thankfully we were in the clear. The Zubat and Coughing Menace stole our partner's treasure, and deep inside Beach Cave we went. There are a couple of gameplay changes implemented in this hack, namely monster houses and traps being removed from the dungeons. Some monster houses are still present, though they are usually located at the very end of a dungeon as a part of their design. With the removal of monster houses and traps, the game did alter the difficulty scaling, dungeon designs, and Pokemon typings as well as spawns. After we beat the Poison Thugs, we started to see a glimpse of our character's personality. Back at the beach, our partner described how important the treasure is to their existence, and we agreed to form an exploration team while trying to figure out who we really are. The game transitioned to what seemed like the future world after the player character had successfully stopped the breakdown of Temporal Tower in the events of Explorers of Sky. We saw Grovyle conversing with Dialga, Dusknoir, and Celebi, noting that the future had been saved as well. Back at the present time, we were able to sign up with the Wigglytuff Guild as an exploration team trainee and got a tour of the facilities with Chatot. Our character pondered about the possibilities going forward with the guild, and Grovyle expressed his wish to travel back to the past to confirm that everything was alright. We were woken up by Loudred the next morning, received some more instructions from Chatot, and made our way to do our first job. Which turned out to be harder than I expected. It really settled in at this moment that I wasn't playing the base game. After a couple of tries, we finally finished the dungeon and retrieved Spoink's Pearl. Chatot stepped in and took the guild's share of the money, that being 90% of the reward money, and left us with only 200p. Our character here took the most offense, and took on an especially confrontational approach with the guild's vice master. We did make a good point though, noting that Chatot waited only after we joined the guild to tell us. We made peace with the daylight robbery, and came to terms with the fact that we'll be handing over most of the reward money to the guild. At night, the duo decided to stick with the guild for now, having nowhere else to go. Next up was a Treasure Town tour with Bidoof, where we ran into the Marill and Azurill siblings over at the Kecleon shop. Through this interaction here, we found that our player character did in fact not possess the Dimensional Scream ability. We happily watched the scene unfold with the water types and Drowsy, happy that someone was finally able to help the Marill and Azurill find their water float. Of course, things can't ever be nice in this world. We found through the bulletin board that Drowsy was a wanted outlaw and rushed out to pursue the criminal and the siblings. Through Meryl's directions, we went up Mount Bristle. We breezed through the dungeon itself and found ourselves face to face with the criminal Drowsy. Despite almost dying to a critical confusion, we were able to down the psychic type. We, struck the downed Drowsy, and Torchic implored us to check on the Azurill. Officer Magnezone apprehended the outlaw, and we got a little more insight on our player character's, tendencies. Back at the guild, we confronted Chatot once more over the reward issue, prompting a short back and forth between our team and the Vice Master. At another part of the world, we saw Darkrai scheming a deal with Giratina, offering its spirit in return for a favor. During the next few days, we spent the time going on a good number of jobs to earn money, raise our rank, and general dungeon exploration. And then, it was time for the Gatekeeper job. Our character made a comment about the guild exploiting its members, and we did the job perfectly nonetheless. We did get a sizable amount of rewards for this though. Doing the job with no mistakes kind of undermined our earlier comment, but I get where our character was coming from. Then, finally came the bigger moment for our team, the Waterfall Cave exploration mission. Shatot assigned us this mission after morning assembly and went back to Wigglytuff to ask whether our team was really hero material. Wigglytuff had already seen the relic fragment that our partner had, and immediately went to check whether one of us was really the chosen one with a special ability. Of course, that was the special ability that we did not have. We went and checked the waterfall and ended up with no lead. Without the dimensional scream, our team was too inexperienced to be able to figure out the entrance to the cave. We reported our findings to Shatot, but our gut feeling told us otherwise. Outside the guild, we insisted to go back, and this Breloom offered his help on our search. This Breloom had the insight to correctly predict that there was an entrance behind the waterfall, and in we went. The journey through the cave was uneventful for the most part, but this monster house at the end caught us a bit by surprise. It took a while, but we eventually got past it. The trio came to the end of Waterfall Cave and managed to avoid the trap purely due to Breloom's prediction. We reported the good news to Shatot back at the guild, but seemingly he wasn't too happy upon hearing that we had the help of Breloom. He warned us to stay away from the grass type, labeling him bad news. The game then shifted to Wigglytuff conversing with Lapras, both confused that one of us didn't possess the dimensional scream. Lapras seemed convinced that we were the pair an old legend foretold, and suggested that we had our auras checked. Following this, Wigglytuff announced a guild-wide expedition, encouraging us to work hard so that we get picked in the expedition roster. Groval, who made his way to Crystal Cave to meet Azelf, found himself in a peculiar situation. Azelf here had no knowledge of what a time gear is, let alone being assigned as a time gear guardian. It was announced that the guild's expedition would take aim at finding Team Charm's hideout, a master rank exploration team. Shatot took the liberty to explain their greatness and told us to do more bulletin jobs. We were on our way to do just that, but had to be interrupted by the Team Skull goons, Zubat and Coughing. We defied these two goons in a rather fiery manner, unfortunately gathering the attention of the guild members. We got blasted by a stink cloud as usual by the Skuntank and went on our normal routine. Over the course of the next few days, the guild was formally introduced to Team Skull's members and we completed more jobs. Team Skull raided our food supply and emptied the guild's perfect apple stock, prompting Shatot to send us to Applewoods to replenish the apples. Our character had already seen through Team Skull's mischief and readied our team to head to Applewoods, anticipating the eventual ambush. Sure enough, the three poison types lied in wait at the end of the dungeon. After some back and forth, it was finally time to battle, and this took me a couple of tries. We tried out some different approaches to this battle and finally got it, and we were greeted by an all too familiar noxious gas combo. The gas combo successfully staggered us, but we managed to catch the Zubat on the way out. Our partner could only stand on the sidelines as we brutally assaulted this bad Zubat. During our report back to Shatot and Wigglytuff, we had anticipated Team Skull's tricks and managed to out the holes in their story. Shatot figured out Team Skull got in our way, and Wigglytuff sent them packing. We confirmed our trust in each other with our partner, and the scene shifted to Darkrai muttering something about a spirit to himself, as well as his plans for Cresselia. The next day, we ended morning assembly with a piece of news from Shatot that informed us of the fact that no guild members wished to be grouped up with us during the expedition. Bidoof tried to explain further afterwards, but it honestly didn't help that much. We did more jobs and rescues from the bulletin board, and it was finally time for the expedition members to be announced. Groval, still making sense of what was going on, figured that the guild will be on their way to see Uxie soon, and decided to head there first in hopes to speak with us privately. The whole guild was of course chosen. Wigglytuff never changes. The guild was to head to Gloomy Forest to find Team Charm's hideout, and true to their word, no guild member was included in our team. We decided that we would need help though, and headed over to Spinda's Cafe to ask for Breloom's assistance once more. While journeying together, Breloom decided to tell us his side of the story back when he was still a part of Wigglytuff's guild. Apparently, he had refused to undergo a perfect apple run and got on Shatot's bad side, resulting in Wigglytuff nearly exploding in anger. The guild's expedition at that time had to be called off before it even started. And as usual, our character was still extremely hostile towards Shatot. The road to the base camp of Gloomy Forest was tough, but we were able to get through with Breloom's help. Breloom headed back first in order to avoid the rest of the guild, and we could finally start the expedition. Wigglytuff and Shatot told the guild that the aim of this expedition was to get our auras examined, then they sent us off into Gloomy Forest. Gloomy Forest was perpetually foggy, so going through this dungeon with a Pikachu was especially painful. All of our attacks were predominantly electric types, so we had a better chance running into the secret bazaar than to actually land a hit. At the end of the dungeon, our team commented on how foggy the area was, and the scene shifted to Groval lifting the fog over at the Groudon statue. Wigglytuff sounded his roll call, but we decided against the call. Our partner stumbled upon a hidden switch and revealed the next area, forcing us to run ahead to beat the switch's timer. Our team made it to a clearing with statues of Team Charm's members and touched the Lopunny statue very respectfully in an extremely non-lewd way. The statue opened the way to another dungeon, Team Charm's hideout. This one was fog-free, so it felt very nice. After a short break at the mid-checkpoint, we went through another area of Team Charm's hideout. At the end, Cresselia came out and immediately confronted us, saying that she knew who we were, and that we needed to be stopped. Reasoning with the Cresselia didn't help, and of course our character's aggression couldn't cool down the situation as well. It was nice of Groval to stop by and watch though. Right, the fight. It took a couple of attempts here and there, but we got it. It seemed like Cresselia was gearing up for another attack, but then Giratina came down and sucked her into the Shadow Realm. And then we could save. Right when everything came to its rather unnatural conclusion, the rest of the guild arrived and we all entered the hideout to get our auras examined. Well, it turned out we had to do it outside, so back outside we go. Medicham went through the guild members one by one and had this to say about us when it finally came time for our examination. She said we already knew what it meant and just left us to it. Then, the discussion came to the topic of Cresselia. When confronted with the question about Cresselia, we decided to lie about the encounter. We had a short talk at night with our partner about Cresselia and how not telling Shatot was probably the right decision. And then we saw Darkrai breaking his end of the deal with Giratina, putting the Giratina to sleep. The next day, we woke up to the guild members all talking about a nightmare. Apparently, most of them had a collective nightmare, one that we and our partner didn't have. We went on our usual jobs, but continuously debated our partner that maybe we were the ones who caused the nightmares to start, having weakened Cresselia enough so that Giratina was able to take her. Also, we low-key gaslit our partner here. Well, it was time for Team Skull again. It seemed like they were keen on getting revenge. After another discussion on the dreams and the aura examination, we saw Shatot raising his concerns about us and our partner, but of course Wigglytuff was still optimistic about us. Shatot pointed out that we obviously knew something about Cresselia and refused to tell. Wigglytuff in turn told Shatot to think about why we wouldn't tell them. The big pink man rightly pointed out that we couldn't trust Shatot. We saw a glimpse of Darkrai successfully gaining control over Giratina's sleeping body, and it was time for a new day. The next morning, we got a letter, a challenge letter to be exact, from Team Skull. They told us they were waiting at Amp Plains, ready for a rematch. Aware of a potential trap, we headed to Amp Plains nonetheless. At the top of Amp Plains, Manectric's gang came out to confront us, with the leaders saying that all of them had the same dream last night. The dream was about our character, and the gang attacked us before any further explanations. These doggos got whooped, and out came Team Skull. Team Skull mentioned that they also had the same dream, but refused to tell us what it was. Not before the fight, at least. We whooped them all the same, and they finally revealed the dream. They dreamt that our character showed up in everyone's dream, and claimed that we would be the one to disrupt time. Team Skull bid us a nice life, and we left the scene. Our character realized the gravity of the situation, stating that we couldn't deny it any longer. Shatot and Wigglytuff was seen discussing the same nightmare, confirming the shared experience between the guild members. Shatot complained once more about us not sharing the Cresselia incident to him, and Wigglytuff asked Shatot to self-reflect once again as for the reason why. At a meeting between Groval and Team Charm, they discussed the same dream as well. Groval was especially concerned about the disruption of the flow of time, and the four of them devised a plan to combat Darkrai. On our side, we also resolved to locate Darkrai, despite having no lead to go off of. We also agreed to disclose the information about Cresselia to the guild, hoping that the rest of the guild will be more receptive to the news, and in turn help with locating Darkrai. During the next morning assembly, of course Shatot made things a bit harder with this threat. After hearing that there would be consequences for withholding information about Cresselia, we decided to avoid Shatot altogether. We went off to look for further information about Darkrai and decided to talk to Breloom first, but Breloom seemingly had fallen on hard times. After opening up about his past experiences at the guild, it seemed like the trauma had caught up, and he was now spending his time always drunk at Spinda's cafe. Our partner decided to strike a conversation with this Ampharos here, who was looking a lot like the Ampharos from Super Mystery Dungeon. They were the cafe's survey group in search for the Shaman village. Although seemingly unrelated, we decided to pursue this lead to start off with. So we went deep inside Horn Valley and encountered the survey group. Except they wanted to take us down because of the dream as well. We whooped them all the same. These Treasure Town residents really isn't friendly at all. Obviously enraged by the situation, we left the scene after some unkind words. At night, our partner tried to tell us to take a step back, but it seemingly fell on deaf ears. While our character had some valid points, it was looking like we weren't ready to take accountability for what we did to Cresselia. We were confronted about our aggressive nature, but still found a way to deflect blame. We saw Groval being quite concerned about the situation of this timeline he traveled to, muttering this quite long monologue to himself. Unfortunately for him, Team AWD's Weavile took the chance to eavesdrop and scurried off. The next morning, Shatot was utterly perplexed that we still wouldn't tell him anything. Wigglytuff would then tell him that he was being an absolute buffoon. Well, he didn't exactly say that, but you get the point. Weavile came by and invited us to their base, prefacing the encounter by sympathizing with us as fellow outcasts. We checked up on Breloom once more, but this effort proved to be less than fruitful. Despite being very wary of her intentions, we went through with the exploration nonetheless, even when Weavile herself revealed to us that she was a member of Team AWD. After going through a dungeon with constant hails, we finally made it to Team AWD's hideout. The hideout, as our partner pointed out, was much humbler compared to Team Charm's. The two teams went back and forth about what the differences between treasure hunters and thieves were, but Weavile made it clear that Team AWD, along with the Pokemon living in the southern region, don't belong in Treasure Town. Weavile stressed the point that should we ever feel like outcasts in Treasure Town, we could always come down south to join them. We left the hideout and talked about it again back home, with us here seemingly being increasingly convinced that we might have to end up as outcasts. Then, the time came for Wigglytuff to send us to meet his master, Armaldo. Yeah, the very same one from the original game's special episode with Igglybuff. The guild would send us there in hopes of our character being able to learn something from the experiences of Armaldo. After making it all the way to the end, it was very wholesome to see Armaldo expressing his joy upon hearing the little Igglybuff he spent time with was now a respectable guildmaster. Our character, of course, took it the complete opposite way. Upon finding out that Armaldo was an outlaw, we assumed that we were sent here because Wigglytuff thought that we were bad too. Armaldo tried to offer his advice for our situation, but we couldn't see past the bigger picture and tried to pick a fight with Armaldo. We were getting ready to fight, but our partner had had enough and immediately left the scene. Puzzled, we hurried after her not long after. Back at the base, we told our partner about our increasing loss of control and expressed our frustrations. We were told to stop making enemies and to give everyone a chance. We debriefed Wigglytuff the next morning, though we really didn't have much to say. Upon leaving, Shatot caught up and tried to make nice with us. At least there's another Pokemon taking the initiative to change here. Upon the completion of a couple of jobs, our partner asked us whether our memories were returning. Apparently some of it did, as our character here described a situation where there were Cresselia, our partner, our character, and one other Pokemon we didn't recognize. This memory was seen from an outside perspective, which left things a bit confusing. And with this, it seemed the gears of fate started turning a bit faster. Groval and Team Charm steeled themselves to stop Darkrai, and Breloom got sober and decided to help our team. Team Charm came to visit us in the middle of the night, imploring us to meet them outside. We followed them outside and got knocked out by Groval with no personal intentions. Breloom, witnessing everything unfold, went to get Spinda at the cafe. At Sharpedo Bluff, Team Charm was ready to send Groval into our dreams to look for answers. We regained consciousness in our dream and witnessed different fragments of our mind before landing in the prison of the ruined future of the original timeline. While debating the reality of the situation, Darkrai came. Of course, he introduced himself only as the guide to our dream world. Darkrai showed us different scenes of the dream world, claiming that it was all a part of our inner sanctuary, the places where we would feel the most serene. We claimed that we felt directionless after the Armaldo incident and decided that we would follow our aura. Delighted by this turn of events, Darkrai encouraged us to proceed. As we were going through the dungeons, we started to notice that the Pokemon attacking us seemed very familiar. They kept repeating and, yeah, these were all Pokemon that we knew. Skuntank, Zubat, Coughing, the guild members, and even the residents of Treasure Town. These dungeons were good fun, by the way. They were by no means easy, but not impossible. Upon exiting, our partner had to stop us in our tracks and state the obvious. The visualization of our aura consisted solely of other Pokemon attacking us. Darkrai returned and kept pushing us to admit what he wanted to hear, that our true desire was that something of complete control and domination. Our partner, starting to get a sense of who the Dream Guide was, confronted Darkrai and tried to disagree. Instead, we were transported to the Pokemon Square, where we had to talk to Wigglytuff to advance the story. We got teleported to Sunset Cliffs and cleared this relatively long dungeon, and came to the cliffside where Xatu resided. Here, we saw the vision of Darkrai and Cresselia consulting Xatu, with Cresselia being increasingly concerned about Darkrai's behavior. During a time where the two worked together, Cresselia had been noticing that Darkrai was becoming more and more sinister, where Darkrai was committing a number of atrocities in the guise of enacting justice. Xatu foretold a world of ruin should they continue down this path, and Cresselia came prepared with the odd keystone to seal Darkrai. The nightmare Pokemon fled, and Cresselia followed. The vision ended as Darkrai appeared again, claiming that this was indeed a real memory. He lamented not striking Cresselia then and there upon her betrayal, and commended our ruthlessness when we dealt with Cresselia at Team Charm's hideout. Our partner stated that we would never be like Darkrai, but it was revealed that we were also Darkrai. Darkrai froze our partner because of the constant chatter and talked to us privately. While we were already starting to notice the signs that we were Darkrai, we would still deny the situation. To push us further over the edge, Darkrai sent us to another part of the dream. Unquestionably shaken, our partner encouraged us to push further and not let Darkrai mess with our psyche. Back in the real world, we saw Team Charm patiently guarding our bodies. That was until Breloom knocked everyone out. Breloom employed the services of Spinda and sent himself inside our dream world as well. Upon finishing the Deep Dark Crater dungeon, we would come and witness the final ending of the original storyline, where we defeated Darkrai with Cresselia and Palkia ending Darkrai's ambitions. And surely enough, we were the spirit of the Darkrai that was attacked during the time travel. Then, Grovyle showed himself, ready to end our existence as Darkrai. We lost this unwinnable battle, and Darkrai stepped in and attacked Grovyle for meddling. Our partner defended Grovyle, and amidst the confusion, Darkrai explained that during the time travel, the Darkrai spirit ironically assumed the identity of its foe, rebuilding us as who we are now. Our spirit contains the essence of Darkrai, but assumed the appearance of a Pokemon that opposed us. Darkrai claimed that two of the same spirit couldn't coexist in the same plane, and invited us over to Temporal Tower to find a solution. Grovyle proposed an alliance to find an exit to the dream world, fully knowing the consequences of a disruption in time. The group ventured forward with Grovyle explaining the role of Temporal Tower and made stride to conquer Dusk Forest. At the end of Dusk Forest, we were confronted by Spiritomb, who managed to take down Grovyle. On top of that, Dusknoir and a Sableye gang came by and surrounded us. That was before Breloom came in heroically and freed Grovyle. We fought through the tough boss battle and prevailed, and filled each other in with what's happening, including Breloom's rash action of knocking Gardevoir out to enter the dream world. With no clear path to the exit, the group made their way to the end of Deep Dusk Forest. The end of the dungeon had a monster house, which, to be fair, this was a nice place to grind EXP. We came to an empty area where a dream Celebi materialized. Though seemingly not very useful at first, Celebi ended up giving us a number of Insomnoscope, enabling us to wake up from the dream. The foursome then discussed what to do next, and came to the conclusion that Shaman might be able to free Cresselia from Giratina's dimension. At the cliff of Sharpedo Bluff, we could see our character coming to terms with the situation and who we really are as a Pokemon. Breloom had a hand in raising our spirit, of course. We fought through a difficult dungeon to get to the Shaman village outskirts and finally met a Shaman. The Shaman immediately saw through our being and believed none of what we were saying. All the Shamans saw the dream and concluded that we were the same Pokemon. Although the Shaman attacked us, we showed enough restraint not to get pulled into the situation. We had to fight the Shaman anyway, though. Despite beating the Shaman, 4 more showed up, leaving things a bit dire. Shatot showed up just in time and pleaded with the Shaman to let us leave. And so we successfully left the village. Shatot showed great restraint and character development here. Back at the guild, we ended up telling everything to Shatot and the other members. Fortunately, we received a positive response and found out that Shatot only found out where we were because of a note left by someone. That someone turned out to be Weavile. At night, Bidoof informed Shatot that the whole of Treasure Town might be planning to attack us tomorrow because of the dreams. Shatot implored Bidoof to calm down the town residents so that they won't attack us while we prepare to go to the Hidden Land. During the morning assembly the next day, our partner displayed her relic fragment to jog Wigglytuff and Shatot's memory, and it was decided that the guild would make an expedition to Brine Cave, much like the original timeline. We then saw Grovyle talking with Lapras, discussing the repercussions of Grovyle traveling back in time again, and if some other higher power could have caused them to land in a different past. We explored Brine Cave with the help of Breloom, who came after all the members have entered the cave. At the end, we experienced the all too familiar scene of Shatot getting down by the Kabutops and Omastars. Team Charm came at the nick of time and agreed to guard Shatot while Wigglytuff got the rest of the guild to come. When we finally reached the end though, Team Charm was far less than hospitable upon meeting us. They had assumed that we were the ones who placed them outside Murky Forest when they were knocked out by Breloom the last time we saw them, and, well, Breloom did knock them out. Team Charm seemed intent on claiming the relic fragment for themselves, so we whooped their asses too to add to our collection. The ladies pulled the "we weren't really trying" card, but then Grovyle came in time to explain the situation. At the sea inlet, our partner's relic fragment started resonating with the wall to call Lapras, but the Darkrai-controlled Giratina came to claim us. In a flash, the quick-thinking Breloom shoved us out of harm's way. Deciding that we couldn't stop now, we rode on Lapras's back and ventured forward. During the voyage, we were determined to prove that although our spirit was that of a Darkrai's, we weren't the same. So we started blasting the Pokemon at the dungeon and reached the Rainbow Stone ship. But of course, we can't ever have nice things. Dialga, deeming us to be anomalies in this world, came down in an attempt to stop us. Grovyle tried to stop the Temporal Guardian to no avail, and Dialga claimed that two of the same spirits cannot coexist at the same time, lest there be irreparable damage to Temporal Tower. In short, we had to fight Dialga. This fight was honestly the hardest one, I feel. Either that's the case or I just came in super unprepared. This fight took me a total of 4 tries to beat. The victory tasted pretty sweet. We somehow immobilized the Dialga and was about to get on the Rainbow Stone ship, but then Celebi had to come and interrupt. Celebi deemed that Grovyle needed to come back and take some time away from this timeline, at least for a little bit. The final task of stopping Darkrai was left to just us two. We rode on the Rainbow Stone ship and reached Temporal Tower, bracing ourselves for the final dungeon. We had no choice but to face Darkrai to prevent the collapse of the tower. This dungeon was riddled with Steel-type Pokemon that were quite tanky. I would say make sure you brought in enough max elixirs before going in. Celebi further confronted Grovyle about his raison d'etre and his desire to save the past to save their future. He still couldn't move on from his mission to save the world, even if it meant going back to the past and doing it all over. Celebi pressed on, saying that their present was already saved, and that we were going to be fine by ourselves. After scaling the final floors of the Temporal Spire, we finally made it to the top. Darkrai, fully aware that only one of the spirits could survive, claimed that this world existed accordingly to Cresselia's vision. Darkrai attempted to persuade us to go back to our original timeline, but we rightly called out his intentions to do whatever he wanted to this world. After his efforts of verbal coercion, Darkrai decided that he would make us one of his sleepwalkers and order us to step into the portal. He also revealed the sleepwalker Giratina and Team AWD, who apparently shared his position of being rejected by the world. With that, Darkrai left us to fight both Team AWD and Giratina at the same time. We apparently could use orbs for this boss battle, so that's super nice of the creator. We ultimately came out the winner, and it was time for Darkrai to step in. That was until Weavile turned coat and left the scene after a change of heart. Irked by this turn of events, Darkrai ordered Giratina to bring us all into the Distortion world and started the final battle. This battle could be tough, but I find that using a stun seed on one of them greatly helped. They wouldn't be able to move while stunned until we attacked them again, so I would stun one and focused aggro on the other. With enough healing items, we were able to best the legendary duo. Giratina was released from its sleepwalking state and brought us back to the real world. Giratina took its side of the deal and sent Darkrai's spirit into another realm. Giratina also released Breloom and Cresselia from the Distortion world, leaving us at the tower with Darkrai's empty husk. Cresselia gave us the odd keystone, believing that we would know what to do with it, and left the tower with Breloom. But for us, there was one thing left to do. We needed to make sure no one could ever misuse Darkrai's body. We had a hard time believing that no one would ever try and take control of Darkrai's power, and decided to move our spirit into Darkrai's body. Even though there was still a chance we could get corrupted by the body, we still had to try. And so, despite our partner's protests, we surrendered our spirit into Darkrai's husk and teleported away after opening a portal. Darkrai's leftover spirit retaliated to the hostile takeover and attempted to defeat us, but it was to no avail. We discharged all over the Darkrai and reigned supreme. With a heavy heart, our partner accepted our decision and descended upon Temporal Tower. She would then be welcomed at the guild warmly, reminded of how much she so wanted to join the guild in the first place. This would all be written down in the notebook Sunflora gifted her. The Meryl and Azurill siblings could be seen joining the guild, and Shatot clearly outdoing himself with the character development. Weavile lamented her own position and decided that she would be joining the rest of the world on the other side, effectively leaving Team AWD. Ampharos and Mawile left their post as Spinda Cafe's survey team, leaving the sober Breloom to step up and take the job. We then come to our partner back at the beach, where it all started. With the odd keystone from Cresselia in hand, she pondered whether she would need it for the future, and decided to throw it out to sea. She wouldn't need it. No spirit is beyond change. As I end the video with the closing statements, I'll let the credits roll here. This Romhack has been such an enjoyable experience. I would strongly recommend you play this for your own, even if you've made it this far into the video. I can tell that it was made with great care, and that was reflected in the game. There are of course some bits of post-game in the hack, namely these 3 groups of Pokemon that appears at Treasure Town just before the events at the Hidden Land. Finishing the game would place us right before those events, giving us the chance to explore 3 new dungeons. But that brings us to the end of this video. I really hope you enjoyed the stay today, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.